Hi, everyone. Welcome to Holistic Emails, Email and More, a Q&A with. Every 2 weeks, we showcase a different topic and have different expert panelists for you to enjoy and join us in discussions. But today is a little different as we have a topic at hand which we feel needs to be discussed. And that's the environment that Black women are in today in a corporate world. Now, I'm Adiola. Before I go on to the introductions, we just have a little bit of a tech issue. Lisa, if you can, Lisa's having a little bit of tech issues, and so no one can hear her. So she's going to go off and try and fix the situation in the background. So we bid you farewell, Lisa, and hopefully you'll be able to rejoin the conversation very soon. Bye. So sad. So I'm Adiola Soul, and I'm a senior consultant at Holistic Email, and I'm your host and moderator for Email and More. And with me today, I have Lisa, who you saw, but she'll be back. I have Shana Somerville, client experience at Movable Inc. Say hi, Shana, so they can see you. Okay. And then Evans, head of people at Global Processing.
Hello, hi everyone.
Wonderful. So our topic today is the forgotten woman, being Black in email. We haven't actually permitted any questions for this live webinar today, but if you do have a burning question, then please feel free to ask, and we'll see if we have time to answer later on. I want to remind you all that this recording will be available on demand 10 minutes after we finish recording. So feel free to share it or rewatch it when you can. Now, into our lovely questions. So, while we don't have Lisa, I'm going to try and keep this a little bit light. Let's see. This is a nice one. All right. Do you anglicize yourself to fit in? And if so, how do you feel about that? Now, I know sometimes it's quite tricky because anglicize can mean so many different things. I think for me, at the beginning of my career, I definitely made sure that I used a lot of words that I saw my white counterparts use, like, oh my God, fantastic, amazing, smashing. I never really used with my friends. I made sure that my hair was always dead straight. I made sure that my makeup was quite pared back, not too much going on. I tried to make sure that I pronounced all my words so that no one could really tell where I was from, just so that anything that kind of gave way to them focusing on my color was removed. And so it was only just my tone and the way I presented myself and the way I dressed as well. I made sure that everything was very conformed and almost like them. I didn't express with color, with my hair, with anything. I kept it very black and white. So,
and would you say, Adiola, that was that early on in your career, or do you think it sort of evolved as you grew up the social and career ladder?
It was very early on, incredibly early on. Insight into how the world of work was and how I needed to adapt in order to fit in. I think as I got older, I just thought, oh, forget this. I want to be me. I want to have curly hair. I want to wear color. I want to forget this. So it happened a lot earlier on. And what about you guys? Do you feel like you anglicize yourself?
I think myself at the beginning of the career I did. But I think I quickly learned that actually my personality is part of me. My skin color's not going to change. It's who I am, and I realized that some people aren't gonna like me, whether I pared my personality down, whether I had my hair straight. In fact, I think actually around 2007, I stopped relaxing my hair totally because I just couldn't be bothered to do it anymore. Looking like to braids, but I feel like my hair is a part of me, and stuff like that doesn't change my intelligence level. It's just a part of your personality. It's how you define yourself. Whether I have big hair or whether I have straight hair, my level of intelligence doesn't really change. So why is it so difficult if somebody else who is white did the same thing? Would they be judged? Would they be, people go, oh, you massively different thing? No, if we do it, it's a whole thing. It's a whole, it's a massive deal. I change my hair a lot. It doesn't change who I am. It's just a way of expressing myself, and I don't think we should have to anglicize ourselves to fit in, because that's what we do. It's about fitting in, not causing waves, and that's not. I don't think it's right, really.
I think I've sort of had similar experience. I don't change my hairstyle all the time, and I think about it, and I think, is it because I don't want the questions at work, and it may. So I think
the question.
Everyone's smiling. People had questions that come.
When you're like, you have a job one day, and then like 3 weeks later, you have bubbly hair.
Absolutely. And, you know, I don't like all of that. Hence why I wear quite dark colors. I'm wearing black today. I just don't like attention being on myself. So the hair issue is quite a big issue, and I think for anyone watching and not understanding why that is an issue, I think it is just a part of who we are as Black women. So what you'll find is Black women like experimenting with their hair. It's just a thing.
I think because we can as well. We have the option to do that. So I agree.
We like experimenting. So if we come in every week with a different hairstyle, it's just because there is this creativeness within us that's something that we like doing. So, you know, you might look at other races and say, you know, people of who are Caucasian, like tanning, that's their thing. Like, we like doing our hair. But it depends on who you are, because as I said, with me, the attention piece, I don't really like it. I want people to focus on what's coming out of here and what's in here. Rather than thinking, oh, she's always changing her hair, when actually that's exactly what you said, Shana. It's nothing to do with how competent I am in the work you employed me to do. So.
I must admit that my current role, everybody is used to the fact that I change my hair on a regular basis, and it's funny, if I don't change my hair, people are like, why haven't you changed your hair? And I'm like, I haven't got time.
Look, you've embraced it, whereas you're still conforming to a way because you want to avoid having to explain yourself each time. So there is still something there, I think, but I do understand why. I think there was one role I had, and I counted how many times I changed my hair in the 8 months that I was there. I had 12 hairstyles. And there was one time I had my afro, and the head of the department came over and she touched my hair, and she was like, "Oh my God, it's so soft like a cloud." And I didn't know how to react, so I had to obviously be proper. I was like, "Oh yes, you know, there's lots of different oils and moisturizer in my hair," but I just felt like, "Oh my God, this is not a petting zoo. Like my hair should not be so, you know, like so alluring to you, you need to touch it. And then why do I then still have to kind of make myself small? Because technically I am offended, but I have to kind of make myself small and a bit low and play up and laugh it off, even though it's actually what you've done is rude. Because if you got a fresh blow dry, you wouldn't have my hands up in your hair, you know, in your curls.
I don't know where people say hands have been, and for me it's like, I don't know where your hands have been. I'd rather you not touch my hair, because your hands could be dirty, or there could be something in it. It's one of those things. I think I've forgotten what the video is. I think the actor, I can't remember what her first name is. It's Steinberg, and she did a video on why you shouldn't touch my hair, and I've actually shown that to a couple of people to get them to understand about how, you know, how it can be considered offensive to some Black women about touching their hair, because, you know, it's not, other people don't do it to others. It just seems to be us. It just seems to be us, and it's we're not a petting zoo. We're not this kind of, you know, thing that you can just go, oh, this is shiny, and people. We're people. You know, you should treat us as such.
But I also find it's so, Adiola, when you spoke about sort of anglicizing in the workplace, yes, hair is one of it, but I think it's also how we speak as individuals. So when we're at work, do we speak in our natural tone? Do we use,
No.
you know, I know when anyone's at work, you don't use slang, or you don't use words that you would use when you're with your friends. But do you even change your accent? And that is quite a bold thing to say, but do you do it with a little bit more class?
Yeah.
As if private school?
Yeah. All the time. You know, people always ask me, oh my God, Adiola, what area are you from? I'm like, oh, Hackney. And then the next question, did you go to school in Hackney? Yes.
Yeah.
I just put this on for your benefit so that you don't say, excuse me, what did you say? Sorry. Like, I pronounce every single thing. I change the way I speak. I change the way even the tone, the volume, the decibel, everything is modified for the workplace. I don't use slang. And if I do, it's with, someone that uses it as well. So it's with, a select group of people that I know I can feel comfortable using certain buzzwords. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I am my name might as well be Jessica, Not Adiola. Do you guys alter the way you speak in the office? And why do you feel that that's what you have to do? Because no one actually says, when you get into the world of work, change the way you talk. But we have a default action where we soften everything. Why do you think that is? And do you guys also change your speech?
I think it's more, you're not changing your speech because you feel that is what you should be doing in the workplace. But I think the older you get, you understand how not everyone is like you. Not everybody has had the same cultural upbringing. Yeah. There's certain terms that you would use, or acronyms, or you name it, that you would typically use outside of work that people just look at you quite strange. And also, if you think about it from a personal point of view, we all want to make it in whatever career path we're currently in.
Yeah.
And there is this unwritten rule that in order for me to get there, I must act and present myself in a certain type of way. So an example would be, Adiola, your hairstyle today, and Shana, your hairstyle today. Everyone's got just a straight hairstyle.
Mine's braids, honey.
It all falls down.
It is straight. Yeah.
It all falls down, whether it's braids, whether it's weave, whether it's your natural hair, it all falls down because, as I said, there are these unwritten rules of what you should be looking like when you are presenting something like this, or you're going to an interview, or...
Oh, she's frozen.
Oh, no.
Just at the good bit.
Oh, no.
Annette, no. What's happening? She's completely...
you're back.
She's back. She's back.
You froze.
Okay. They tried to stop the gem that I was about.
I know, right? They wanted to really reduce the tea that we were about to just deliver.
So yeah, we do. I know. I personally do. I sit on an executive team, and so you have to present yourself in a certain way. I could not speak to key stakeholders. I couldn't speak to our board of directors. I couldn't speak to most people in the organisation if I went back to my roots, which, high five, Adiola, I was born and bred in Hackney. Yes, I was born and bred in Hackney. And growing up in that type of area, there are various things that you take into account. So there are no private schools in Hackney, unless I'm missing something.
I grew up in Edmonton.
There are, in inner city London, there are no private schools. So
no.
The privilege that others have, which is good schooling, private schooling, should I say, that opportunity was available to me. My parents were first generation migrants from Ghana, and they came to the UK when they were sort of in their 20s. And so they started from scratch. And so some of the benefits that some people have or had available to them. We didn't have that. We were just happy to be here in a school learning. And that was the main thing. So as I grew older, I think I taught myself rather than anyone teaching me what to do. But I taught myself that, right, you know, I could go and be quite ghetto, if that's the word that we want to use, which is, you know, speaking how Hackney people speak or how Londoners speak, and knowing that actually that's not going to get me that far because of the type of career path that I want to go. So I would teach that to my kids, and some people might say, "Oh, that doesn't make sense. You should be able to be who you are." I've heard that a few times.
Yeah, but you can't though, can you? The rule doesn't apply because, you know, sorry to cut you, I guess the same thing could be said, you know, those that live in Essex don't change, you know, or even soften their own, you know, colloquial terms and accents, and they're still able to thrive, you know, and their tone and their pronunciations is quite distinct. Welcome back, Lisa. Are you with us? No.
We can't hear you yet.
Still can't hear you.
Oh no. Oh, well, yeah, Lisa, sorry. You're going to have to try and troubleshoot this with Kath again. Okay. We'll see you soon. I bid you farewell. For now. Bye. It's quite interesting, you know, that I understand completely in that in terms of education and the resources available, but there is still something that innately makes us feel as though we do have to anglicize. Those with accents don't. I know there are some people that go to accent school to try and soften their accent so that they can be understood, but they don't necessarily change the entire way they speak. Even now on this webinar, I'm naturally a well-spoken person, but I'm not this well-spoken. Let's be honest. But you know, it's really nice to hear all of your thoughts. I want to get on to another question because I know, you know, we could spend ages talking about this. So the next one, I was going to save until Lisa comes back, but I don't know how long it's going to take her to troubleshoot. But the next one is this. So moving up in the workplace, what has been your experience to date, and have you had to navigate any barriers?
Yes.
Like yes.
It's a definite yes. I think in pretty much all my roles, I've had to change jobs to climb the ladder, as it were. It, you know, when you have tried to, well, especially when I have tried to speak to people about, you know, increased responsibilities and roles and promotion, there's always been pushback, but there's never been any good logical reasons for pushback. You know, it's out of the budget this year, or blah 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 blah. You know, it's the same old excuses, and it's just like, why is that person there being able to progress, but actually I'm not? And, you know, I seem to be doing the same level of work and trying to do all these things, but it just doesn't seem to be working. So, you know, my only option is to move on. So from one job to another job. That's how in the majority of places it's been for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I've had to hop around in order to get the pay increase, in order to get the job title change. And I dread every single time I have an interview. It's like, oh, you've had a few jobs. I have to make a joke. Like, I don't have commitment issues. I'm incredibly loyal. I just want more work and more responsibility and a higher pay. And it just doesn't seem to be available in my current workplace. Because like you said, Shana, there's always some form of barrier as to why I can't progress. So like you said, lack of funds, but then all of a sudden there's a magical role available within your department for a junior exec. And you're like, okay.
What?
Yeah. You have to pretend like
you've made yourself clear.
Yeah, you don't want me to progress, but you want to hire a junior. No problem. I'll leave. So yeah, that's literally been my journey. And I always have to explain myself as to why I've left one role and gone to another. It looks like I can't be loyal or you can't depend on me, which is the complete opposite. It's that I'm such a quick learner and I'm an efficient worker and I just want to get lots of stuff done. And when those opportunities.
You can't hear me.
No, we can.
We can hear you.
Oh,
We can.
Now we need to see you.
okay. So let me try that magic trick in the midst of.
Yay!
You can hear me?
Yay!
I feel so connected now.
Excellent.
I apologize for interrupting. I was just excited to try the test.
No, that's absolutely fine. Glad to have you here. We were literally just talking about our progression, our career progression within the workplace, and if we've had to navigate any barriers. And Shana was literally just sharing her journey in terms of she's had a lot of pushback in the past, and in order to kind of overcome that, she has to move. And my story is incredibly similar to Shana's. We were just about to hear Annette, and
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to hear about Annette's story. So let's hear it, Annette.
good.
I know. I feel like I'm on. Oh, God, right. Okay. It's slightly different from Shana's and Adiola's. I think I've always had some form of mentor that has helped me progress. So internal progression is usually the easiest form of progression. If you have the right person that is sort of mentoring you, coaching you into being the better version of your current self. So I've always had somebody, and I thought back a while ago about, oh, that's been pretty cool. But then I look back at who those mentors have been, and I didn't acknowledge the fact that they had been other Black women. So I sort of sat back and thought, did I progress because they were Black women? So throwing a little bit of imposter syndrome, or did I progress because I was good? And I still battle with that today. And I think a lot of women, and then, you know, add on top being a Black woman, we do struggle with thinking, oh, am I good? Or am I the token Black person because you need to get up your diversity figures? And it's hard to think about that every time you either go for a senior role or you are undertaking a senior role. Are you in that organization and in that particular role because of your capability, or is it because, well, actually, you know, the books are not looking that good on diversity and it makes sense for Annette or Shana or Adiola to be on board? So is it a coincidence? You'll probably never know.
I hear you. I think on your case, I think with your mentors being Black women also, I don't think they would have progressed you if they didn't see potential in you.
Oh, no, they wouldn't have. Like, I understand that totally. They wouldn't have. But what I'm trying to say is slightly different. They've been able to progress me, but if it was somebody else that was in their place, would have done the same thing.
I hear you. I think my very first role was with a fashion company, and it started off as an internship, but then turned into a perm role. And there was a lot of hostility in that office towards me, especially from the PR team. I will not name her. But she told me that I should be grateful I have the job because, you know, I should be sitting on the floor. She was really horrible. Yeah, she was really horrible to me. But the woman who hired me, I will name her, Bobby Brockbank. She was amazing. But she also understood, I don't know, I think she understood what Black people, Black women go through. And I think especially because in her environment, she lived in Brixton, she was incredibly multicultural, really diverse. And so for her, you know, she was very incredibly open-minded. And I think she saw my talents and skills and gave me that opportunity. But I doubt if it had been anyone else, would they have taken the time to really look at my CV and look at my degree, look at my accolades and say, you know what, this person is definitely worth bringing along on the ride. And even with that, I think she received a lot of backlash. She also received hostility in the office. And at times I wondered, is it because she's hired me? For her being technically an ally to me. And I think that's where most of my progressions have come from. If there has been a person who can either identify with me or identify with my background and my culture, and therefore doesn't see my skin color as a barrier, that's probably been the only time I can say I have truly thrived. Other than that, it has been a dodging, different jobs, like a dodge. And I hate that. I hate when I go on LinkedIn and I see someone who's been in a company for 3 years and they started off working on the top floor. Then they were, a front of house assistant. Then they worked in CRM as a junior executive. Now they're head of in like 3 years. I'm like, what?
You do wonder, and it's kind of like, and all these questions do go through your head, as it's like, what is wrong with me? Why? What is the difference between that person and me? And you feel like it has an impact on you, especially on your self-esteem and your mental health, and kind of like you have all these questions, and there's nobody to answer that question either, because nobody wants to give you an honest answer. It's frustrating.
It's draining. And I think you hit the nail on the head on the mental health piece. Always having to go through rejection, or just having to think about your every step in the workplace, that is mentally draining.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, well, I'm a Black woman myself, but I don't know how a lot of Black women, how we deal with that day in, day out, having to question ourselves, having to think about what we do. Lisa, you missed out. We were talking about hairstyles and having to think about, oh, do I change my hairstyle this week? Will they say something about it? It can be mentally draining, but somehow we still continue, and we're still thriving.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's why it's so important to be transparent and authentic, but at the same time, it is a navigational of how far is too much and how less is too little. So it's always a balance game, and that's what I've learned as well. I remember when I was in corporate, in terms of navigating through barriers, I used to work on teams, show up. I was so excited about my highfalutin career at the time. And I learned very quickly, you could work on projects, give up your weekends, be totally for the team. And when it came time for recognition, and it's like, I'm totally overlooked. And I was naive at the time. I'm like, why am I being overlooked? Did I miss something? And so when I inquired, I stepped up to inquire. I thought it was a team award. And they said, no, it was just for senior leaders. It was only 3 of us on the team, and I was the 3rd. And so when I looked at the handbook, sometimes handbooks are helpful because they do contain information for you to clean the rules. When I go back to the handbook, it said any member that participated on this core team for X amount of hours would qualify. So I had to decide at that point strategically, do I take this on, or do I just pretend like it didn't happen? And in my case, I decided to take it on. And so they opened an investigation, come to find out that I had worked more hours than the other 2 colleagues as well in delivering this key deliverable. And they had to go back the next month and recognize me in front of the president and to give me my financial reward. But and so I was like, great, I stood up for myself. I was so happy, you all. And then, what happened next was sometimes you could win the battle, but not the war. Because about 4 months later, I would say, you guys, it was about 5 people in the entire company that was on layoff. And my name, Lisa S. Jones, was one of them. And that was a very important lesson that I learned in the midst of, that you have to choose your path to navigate. In mine, I chose to stand up. Now, regardless of the outcome, it was within me that I couldn't keep it in, that I needed to share that, I supported this. And so that's a constant battle in navigating the waters. But the great news is, you guys, when I left that position, something better came, and I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and my career blossomed more. But I learned that I was an entrepreneur at that point when I was laid off and only had X amount of dollars in the bank, and I had to make it work. I said, I need to put my brain to total use.
Yeah. Yeah. But look at that. It's like you have to choose. as to whether or not you fight to be recognized for the work that you've done or stay silent to potentially protect your career. And that isn't, I don't think, a battle that, you know, other people really have to go through. There are times you wonder, should I speak up, or should, you know what, should I just save it for a time when it's really necessary for me to speak up?
I think we should always speak up. I think, working in HR, I see everything. I see everything on the background, all the pay reviews, all the remuneration that gets put through. And then I see the front end also about people, talking to their line managers and requesting increases. I've seen it for over, I'm not going to show my age, but like 10, 15 years, I've seen it. And people shout, if you work within the private sector, people shout about being properly remunerated for the work that they do.
Yeah.
And we should be no different to that. We shouldn't be looking ourselves and thinking, well, actually, if they don't give me this pay rise, or if I'm not entitled to this bonus, they're going to lay me off. Well, then lay me off. Then lay me off. Then that's not the right business that you should be in. Because if an employer behind closed doors doesn't want to reward and recognize your efforts, why are you there?
Yeah.
It's time to move on, potentially. When one door closes, another one opens, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would just encourage everyone, if you think something in your heart in regards to a comparator in your organization that you can see is climbing versus the length of time or the tenure that you've been there, you have to speak up and say something. We can only change this narrative by speaking up.
No, I agree. And you know what's funny? It's not funny, actually, but the question section is on fire. It seems as though what we're talking about resonates with so many people, which is great. And there's one question that says, and I don't know if I just want to highlight it because we've been talking about this a lot, but one person has said, what about time off? Holidays with the mentally draining. When we're talking about just trying to navigate the world of work and having to constantly wear different hats and so forth is draining, and it's a drain on your mental health. This particular person says she has a son who's deaf, and their employees took the beep comparing, her situation to a dog when they requested unpaid leave for his operation, which is crazy. And I remember having a conversation with a recruiter actually the other day about my experience working in permanent positions. And at the beginning of the year, or there was some time, my mum was very unwell, and she was in isolation. She was in an isolation ward. I had to wear a mask when I had to go and see her because no one knew what was wrong with her, and everything was failing. And I wasn't sure, whether or not I was going to have my mum. And, I came to work every day with a smile on my face, got my work done, would never even know that, I was traveling miles after work because my mum doesn't live in London to go and see her. And I confided, and the response was very weird. It was like, oh, I'm so sorry, Adiola. Are you going to be able to get that project done? And it's like, oh, okay. But then Mrs. Sally's dog died, and it was like, oh, take all the time you need. My God, don't even worry about that work. It's fine.
Where's the humanity of it, right? Where's the humanity?
Don't do it.
It's ridiculous how people just that level of empathy when it comes to us is like, where is it? where is that level of empathy?
It's like, where's the body? You really need to find it. Like, I don't understand.
Well, let me share an example as well. Even out of corporate, now that I'm a full-time entrepreneur and CEO, I just had an incident less than a year ago that happened whereby I set 2 meetings for the day. One of them was with a potential investor customer. And then the second one was with a corporation, a major enterprise brand. So I had the meeting with the investor first. and it was a female actually. And so she said, Lisa, you know, I see that you're able to, you have customers like Delta and Porsche and Major League Baseball as customers. How are you able to accomplish that? I really don't understand. You know, I hear you have this company, iMail, etc. And so I said, I founded the company, and it's based on the premise of email, and it does XYZ. And she said, but you have Delta as a customer. Like, she was baffled, right? So, you know, I explained to her how these things progress. And she said, oh, I know what it is. It's because you're Black, you're older. I was like, excuse me? Yeah. And she said, you're Black, you're older, and they're afraid not to give you the contract. What? She said that to my face, you guys. And when she said it, I was actually stunned. I mean, I'm normally like comical. And I said, and so I had to collect my thoughts just for 1 second. And I said, actually, that was not the reason. The reason my company was chosen is because it's boss, it's the bomb. It's because the customer sees the value proposition and what iMail brings to the table. And so I had to politely, you guys, I had to excuse myself from the table. I said, forgive me, because I'm due to go to my next meeting at a Delta Airlines, which I was going. But when I left there, I was feeling some kind of way in my psychological. She said I was Black, older, and what was the third one you got? Oh, they were afraid. So that's why they gave me a contract or whatnot. So anyway, I called a colleague, I shared it with her, and I said, you know, I feel some kind of way about it. And she helped me to get my zone. You have to be in a zone when you go present. You have to be a zone in the workplace. So you have to have game on at all times. So I pray about it in the car. Prayer is very important. I get out the car. I get my feng shui on. Yeah.
You got to get the feng shui right. Yeah.
Totally. You have to have your vibe right. You never need to steal your vibe. Yeah. And I go into Delta headquarters and I give one of my best presentations to date, and I slayed the dragon.
Amazing.
And I secured the business from Delta, but it was just interesting that conversation happened earlier, a few hours prior to that meeting. But it also fueled me to know that I got the right, that iMail has the right ingredients. I have the right ingredients. I got the right team. Why not me? It is me, and it is my time.
Yeah. It's definitely. And that's another thing. It's where your intelligence and whatever it is that you bring to the table is always questioned. It can never just be because you are naturally brilliant. There is always an added connotation to it. And that's frustrating. That's what you always have to battle and deal with on a regular basis, whether you realize it or not, whether it's obvious or not. It's the situation that presents itself where you're having to defend your legitimacy as a professional. And that's not cool. All right. So I don't want us to not get through some more juicy questions. There is a question from the audience, but I want to get onto this because I want to hear Annette's stats. So she's full of stats, guys. I want to call her a nerd, but I don't want to be discriminated.
Hey, that's hey, be a nerd. It's a definite word.
So, C-suite roles. Are there enough Black women represented, and how can this change?
I don't have a stat for you. I feel like you've hyped me up, and I don't have a stat. But C-suite roles. So
yes, you do. You have a stat about the amount of Black women who take up.
I'll get there.
Okay.
So C-suite roles. So I think for anyone listening and not understanding, because you know, I think we have a range of people listening on this live. So it's like your directors of a public authority business. C-suites are the biggest roles that you can get in a private sector organization. Essentially, they sit on the board. They're usually the directors of the company. They usually have shares in the company. They have equity, you name it. They are the top dogs. Why is it so important to have Black women, or, you know, let's just in general, Black people on the board? I know we're all women on this call, but actually the issue is just having a Black representation on the board. It's so difficult. And the way I've always looked at it is why do we need to be on the board? You know, if I was to ask you, Shana, why do we need to be a C-suite member of an organization? What difference does it make? And for me, it's about not just the fact that I'm diverse in my skin tone, but I'm diverse in my thoughts, my thinking, how I operate, and being an organization that serves, whether you're B2B or B2C, you serve some client or you serve a customer. You have to be able to connect with your customers, your client. So if, for example, I was selling something in India and I've just expanded my remit for my business into India, I need to be able to connect with people in India. The culture is different, how they talk, how they type. I think if anyone has dealt with people in, you know, different regions around the world, there is a whole code of different cultural norms that you need to think about. Now, if you want to win that business in India, as we're talking about, how would you try and win that business? I could go there and be Annette from Hackney, but the likelihood is that may not work.
No.
But if I have that representation that is working for my organization, that is able to connect with that customer, the likelihood is that would bring more revenue for my business. So diversity is not just about having somebody of a different origin, different skin color, or of color. It's about ensuring that you are able to connect. You look at your community, you're able to reflect them. Now, I've been in organizations where it's based in East London, and so majority of the staff are going to be of ethnic origin. But if you look at the city, because London as a city, you see a lot of difference. So working in, let's say, Moorgate compared to working in Walthamstow, you see the difference. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but you see that there are many more white people, Caucasian people working in the city, but it's based in areas like Tower Hamlets, areas like that are close to Hackney, that are close to Stamford Hill, where they should be representing themselves there, but they're not.
Yeah.
So it's so important to have somebody on that exec team or that SLT team, but there's not. And the roles that you do get are people who work in inclusion and diversity roles. So I've seen a lot of chief diversity officers. So this is the new thing, like, I don't know, 2020 and, you know, a couple of years before. You put a black lady in a chief of diversity or inclusion role, and then you think you've ticked the box in terms of how everybody on the table. And that's not what we're trying to do here.
No, exactly. I read an article this morning. And it was actually in The Guardian, and they were talking about all these different social media platforms and what they've been doing to, you know, kind of move ahead with these changing times at the moment. And so, you know, Facebook has donated a certain amount of money to Black charities and to Black organizations, removed certain inflammatory comments and groups and so forth, but still have taken a very strong standpoint on not completely removing groups or languages that are still quite offensive to Black communities and so on. And there has been no form of like dedication to include more Black people on their C-suite executive level roles. However, Google has made a promise to have an increase in the number of not vacancies, but the number of Black people that they hire within executive level roles by 2023. However, at the moment, currently, out of their entire global workforce, do you know how many people, what the percentages of Black people that work at Google?
It's usually below 4%, I would say.
Yep, the HR boss, yes, 3.1%.
Wow.
Compared to 57.4% white people.
Wow.
So, you know, and it's a huge company with offices all over. I mean, they've got a Google campus in Shoreditch, and they've got their Google offices in King's Cross, and it's huge. you know, and they're even building a new one that's costing millions, like in King's Cross. So it's crazy to see the underrepresentation in this day and age, and it's taken something as big as this movement for people to be awake and understand that they need to do so much more with these roles.
I would reject that. Why is it going to take 3 years for you to?
Well, that's what it's true. Why? And
they're hoping that people forget. They're hoping that people forget.
Why does it take 3 years to gain some equality? And actually, just going back, this is an Annette stat. Google have put out those same stats for the past 5 years. And what they do is they embed their diversity, inclusion figures into a very small part of their website. And so they say, oh, well, you know, we publish all of our figures. But if you see year on year, there is no change, because those figures have been out for the last 5 years. They've got a chief diversity and inclusion officer. Why are we still at 3.1% 5 years down the line after displaying your stats and onboarding that type of role? So that just says to me that it's just a faff role. It's just a role to make it seem like there is change going on, but the numbers never lie. They never lie.
Yeah, and there's a lack of commitment there. A big lack of commitment. Okay. Shall we move on? Let's have a different question, because I want us to get as many as possible. Right, this one. Have you experienced being undermined in a role? How did it make you feel? Has it affected your mental health? Now, I mean, I don't know about all of you, but me personally, okay, these braids are really, sorry.
They're beautiful.
They're trying to steal the show, you know? No, not today. Okay, so my very first management role, I was so happy to get this job, you know, pay increase, finally a manager. I could hold my chest up high and say, yes, I'm a manager by the time I'm 30. That was my goal. And this was some time ago. I remember I had onboarded a new ESP, so an email service provider for them, connected all of their different data points, connected their store data to their e-commerce as well as to their booking system. I mean, I did so much, and this was my first re-platforming, and it went off without a hitch, right? And so we moved offices, and it came up to Christmas, and because it's still a small business, everyone needs to pitch in, which I'm more than happy to do. So, you know, there's not that much campaigns I need to send out. So I go into the next room and start helping everybody pack the orders for Christmas rush, Christmas deliveries. So there are some interns there helping us with packing all of our different orders. And one of them at the time was just looking for a magazine, and she stopped on a boy that she liked. And I happened to know that boy because obviously I'd worked in fashion for so long. So I've met so many people and made so many friends. And so I said, oh my gosh, I know this person. Him and his boyfriend are so lovely. And that was the end of it. So the next day I come into work, and my CEO pulls me aside and says, oh, Adiola, today we'd like you to work in the stock room. We've already put some orders in there and wrapping paper. We'd like you to go and work in there because the intern was upset at the comment that you made. So just to make sure everything is okay, please go and work in the stock room. And I was like, I didn't say anything, but I just felt like, how does an intern, she hasn't even graduated yet, how does she have so much authority over me as a manager that I have been made an example of and told to go and work where I cannot be seen? It's almost as though my sight is offensive because I knew someone that you fancy. What I just felt so small. I immediately felt as though my title, my position means nothing, and it can be stripped away from me immediately. And I think throughout my career, I have experienced one way or another some form of discrimination or being undermined. And I think that's why now I'm just a contractor, because my mental health was affected so much. I constantly questioned myself. If I replied to a question, I'd be tracking back in my mind, just making sure I didn't use any words that could have come across offensive, and, you know, looking at their face to get any facial cues to see whether or not I had said something that may have triggered them, sending emails just to make sure to clarify that whatever I said wasn't meant in a certain tone, you know, to cover my tracks because of the experiences that I've had. And that in itself is just so exhausting. Like, you know, so have you guys, I see nodding, like Lisa, she's like Dr. Evil. She's like, yes. I have a story pretty. Like, I'm sure maybe your stories are not as, you know, horrible as that, but have you guys experienced any form of undermining?
I've had a story that I'll share briefly. And this is when I was still in corporate as an executive, making my transition at some point to think about when was I going to leave corporate. I decided to go to Vegas for a presentation for my company, iMail. I was working till like 5 a.m. every day. You know, you moonlight. That's what you do when you're trying to build a brand. So I'm only sleeping 3 hours a day, but I'm delivering at work. And then after 5 p.m., I'm doing my own company. So I was invited to go to Las Vegas to present in front of 10 corporations at one time. I mean, that's like a field day. You're just waiting for an opportunity to be in front of Disney World or ABC, etc. Right. So I go, I'm all ready. I have my team. We go to Vegas on a Sunday. I get there on a Saturday. I present on a Sunday, and I see that there are all these corporations. Well, one of the corporations that was in the room was from my corporation, a colleague. I go to that colleague 10 minutes before I was due to present. And I let her know, you know, listen, I'm here on behalf of my company, iMail, and I'm going to be presenting. If it is a conflict of interest, it may be best, you know, if you leave, or if, you know, we figure this out early. She said, no, it's no problem. Go ahead and present. I'll just be sitting, taking notes. It's fine. I go present. I blow it out the water, me and the team, actually. And after that meeting, you know, my colleague was just sitting there like, what just happened? I don't know. And next thing you know, you all, maybe 3 hours later, I get a phone call. This is on a Sunday. Now I'm still in Vegas having a good time. I might be at the slot machine by now because I'm having a blast. I just killed that presentation, right? I get a call from that colleague that's in another state, but she was there in Vegas too. She said, Lisa, I just wanted to let you know that I shared with our VP that you're here in Vegas and that you were presenting, and she was not happy about it. Well, why was she not happy about it? Well, she doesn't like any entrepreneurs in our group. And the idea that you're presenting to her colleagues, she does not appreciate. Oh. So the VP was there in Vegas. In short, VP was also there in Vegas for the same big convention. But again, I'm on my own time. I get invited by Microsoft to sit at their table. Their table is number one. And what got back to me, you all, and this is a very important lesson that I learned, and I welcome to share this. And this is probably the first time I've told this story publicly, but what happened basically was my VP was upset that Lisa S. Jones was sitting at table 1. She was sitting at table 14. That's all I'm gonna stop on that. So she was upset because I was sitting at table 1, but I was there on my own dime, on my own vacation,
and on your own merit, off your own back, through your own work. Yeah,
and that's how I knew that was my decision point. And knowing, Lisa, if you're gonna make a leap, you need to be planning it now. So basically, the colleague said, "She's coming for you now, Lisa." So I had to just get everything in order to make the transition. But I never looked back. So things, you know, you just have to take things and learn from them and keep growing.
Yeah, but it's still there's that kind of, it's unnecessary, right?
It is unnecessary.
The whole experience is unnecessary, but unfortunately, it's something that we, you know, have to endure. And I guess, yes, on the flip side, you've come out triumphant, but why do we always have to go through those difficult points in our career? You know, we have to bounce back and make sure that it works. You know, you have to make sure you have the energy and the commitment to make sure that whatever it is that you're focusing on actually works, because there are so many blockages in your way in terms of your main career path, you know? So, and it's a shame. Whereas I've seen people in similar positions where, let's say, they're working on a side business and there's a lot of support for them when it comes to their side business, and they don't even have to hide it. You know, it's like, oh yeah, guys, there'll be an email. Guys, make sure you follow Dan, and he's doing this thing. He's creating his own thing here. You know, show some support, and he still gets no friction in the workplace. Whereas you have to keep yours under wraps.
Yeah.
Yes, and when I got back to Atlanta from that conference, maybe a week later, but the colleague had advised me it was coming anyway. Well, Lisa, she's going to take your computer and send it to IT, have it scanned. You're going to be called into security for an investigation. And sure enough, all of those things that I just said happened.
Ooh, you said what?
So now I got all of my data on a table. I'm walking in a room with 2 investigators from the company and all of my data. I felt like I was exposed, violated, but at the same time, I knew I was still right. Because I was on my own time, but I was thinking, the right time for me to leave, is it not? Well, this is happening for a reason, so let me embrace it. Let me try to learn a lesson from this.
Yeah, but those lengths, you know,
I know
they're running out of time. But like very similarly, when I was at a role, I was an executive at the time, and I found another job to get to another competitor, and what they had done is they had hired a woman to be my manager, but never advertised the role. And when I was hired, my line manager, who went on maternity leave, had said, you know, I'm doing such great things and she wants me to become a manager, but that was snatched from me. So I left. And because I left, I was put under investigation. And my emails were tapped. Luckily, I'd made friends with the tech team. So you got to make friends with tech.
Yes, you do.
You got the tech team on board. Otherwise, they're not going to help you. So I found out they were reading my emails. They were checking everything that I was doing. I was an executive. I was junior, bottom. Why are you concerning yourself with me? You know, I worked long days, long hours. I put in all the effort. I was the one that was hard done by, and yet I'm the one that gets scrutinized just because I found a better offer. So it's such a shame that we have to go through these things, and you know, you don't see anybody else going through that, and so it does make you wonder, you know, why am I always subjugated to this type of experience? You know, like you said, Annette, sometimes when you do get the job, is it am I getting the job because of my talents? Are you liking what you see in the CV, or is it because you just feel like you need to tick the status quo? Yep, we've hired a Black, we've got an Asian, we have somebody who has needs. Great, yep, good. But then as soon as that person falls out of line or doesn't conform to the way you want them to, it's a wrap. And so you're constantly on edge. Watching your every move, watching how you interact with colleagues, watching your mood. Have you ever been told, oh, you don't seem yourself today, and all you're doing is quiet working?
I get it all the time. Or I get someone say to me, or, you know, oh, you're coming across as scary, or they use certain adjectives to describe. And I'm like, how am I scary?
Good one. Yeah.
Oh, you come across as a bit frosty. What do I have to smile every day and you know, clap and cheer? Like, why do I get scrutinized for doing my job? I'm here to work. I'm not here to laugh and play, am I?
Yeah, no, it's like intimidating, scary, but like there are so many different adjectives we have to battle on a daily basis, and that comes back to anglicizing. You anglicize yourself to reduce those adjectives that are placed upon you. So, you know, that's a really nice, you know, funny way to end it in terms of, you know, we have to anglicize, but we're not going to anglicize ourselves anymore. We won't cause a ruckus in the workplace, but we definitely, you know, are going to be more of ourselves and less of who we're not. And I've really, really enjoyed this discussion with you ladies today. But unfortunately, this is all we have time for. And I want to thank everyone attending this event live and all of those in the future who will be watching it on demand. Thank you so much for your time. And I really hope you found this event useful and insightful and somewhat beneficial. And connect with us. You know, we're all very lovely ladies, so connect with us if you can. And of course, I want to thank the amazing speakers for sharing their experiences and expertise with us. And please, guys, for those of you watching, we'd love feedback. We want to know how we've done so that we can improve and so that we can keep on bringing you quality online events and webinars, because there's so much more to come. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope you have a lovely evening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.